Hi, my name is Sebastian. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share the paper I wrote. The name of the paper is ideological stance disclosed by the use of irony in a film. The paper basically focuses on these two interpersonal strategies, and they are applied in a film by Michael Moore, Capitalism, a Love Story. The article was written and published in the National University of El Litoral. My supervisor was Maria Lelia Pico. This is the parts of the paper. In the introduction, well, the connection between discourse and ideology is highlighted. Well, Schifrin 2006 defined discourse studies as one of the functions of discourse studies is to show how people make sense of each other linguistically in texts and contexts. The paper, as I said before, revolves around these two interpersonal strategies, irony and appraisal. They are framed within SFL's interpersonal metafunction. Schifrin explains many things. 2006 explained that we can do many things through discourse, representing the world, organizing thoughts into communicative actions, and most importantly, conveying our attitudes and identities, which is in keeping with the interpersonal metafunction. Right? Here we can see a connection also in the introduction between discourse and ideology. Ideology's notion of Van Dyck 2006 is taken into account in the paper. Usually in a relationship with others, we disclose our ideology through discursive means, right? And ideologies are seen as a system of ideas and as shared cognitive, socio-cognitive shared representations of social groups. One of the two most important functions, specific functions of ideologies, according to Van Dyck, is legitimating domination or articulating resistance in relation of power. According to Van Dyck, ideologies are acquired, expressed, enacted, and reproduced by discourse. The paper revolves around the notion of tenor. So we're dealing with the interpersonal metafunction. Chapter 1, we set the research question is set to what an extent is the way we position ourselves ideologically reflected in a language use. The purpose of the paper is, as we said before, is describing how language use discloses different ideologies with regard to the notion of capitalism in Michael Moore's movie Capitalism, a Love Story, by trying to deal with this research question. The objectives are set there. Specific objectives showing uses of linguistic strategies such as irony and appraisal, and to show how our choice of words reveal or disclose our most intimate ideology. The target audience, usually the paper is aimed at AS and A-level students in bilingual schools, where they have to sit for AS language, and they have to deal with persuasive texts. And usually they are expected to uncover ideological positionings behind the text, and also linguistic markers that show ideology, or not only ideology, but in this type of exams, students are expected to uncover different uses of language, right? The pragmatics of language, different linguistic categories, as well as ideological markers. Also, the paper is expected to help teachers themselves to become critical thinkers, to help to contribute to criticality, and having teachers become aware of how our choice of words reveals whether issues are presented as positive or negative. Well, in chapter 2, the theoretical background, the three notions of political discourse, ideology, and power are intertwined. I show there the notion of political discourse as a type of text, the notion of ideology as a system of, as a socio-cognitive system of ideas, as we said before. The notion of big D discourse by G, I think it's worth discussing. Has to do with the way ideas are articulated, in contrast to little d, which has to do with language in its context, language beyond the sentence in its context of use. This is closely, this is in keeping with Fairclough's idea of discourse, right? And also Michel Foucault notion of discourse as well. Closely, discourse is practically synonymous with ideology. Well, also the notion of symbolic power by, and then which is power is not only exerted through language, but according to Fairclough 2001, power is also exerted through physical force. Well, still in chapter 2, theoretical background, it's the two interpersonal strategies intend to show, or the use of these interpersonal strategies intend to show, or shows, the use of these strategies shows language manipulation, right? Here we can see the notion of appraisal, which is usually it's based on Martin and Rose 2003 and also Martin and White 2005. Appraisal, according to Martin and Rose, is seen as a system that foregrounds the interactive nature of discourse as negotiation. It's split into two: attitude and engagement. Most of the findings within attitude, most of the data collected in the movie and presented in the paper were instances of appreciation, which has to do with the value of things, how things are valued, the worth of things. Of course, we also have affect and judgment, but most of the examples found were examples of appreciation. Of course, within also within the movie, in the movie, Michael Moore and most of his interviewees and speakers in the movie, in Capitalism, A Love Story by Michael Moore, resorts, or speakers in the movie resort to engage the system of engagement, especially Michael Moore, to make the narrative, to make his own narrative more plural, to make it more plural, to make it more democratic, to make it more inclusive, and many examples of some subcategories of engagement have been found. Of course, the paper does not focus on the subcategories. There are some Some are mentioned, some of the categories are mentioned, like disclaiming, proclaiming, acknowledgement, and attribute. Engagement, according to Martin and White, based on or following or in keeping with Bakhtin, this Russian Marxist thinker, Bakhtin, engagement is presented as a dialogistic perspective, showing of meaning or meaning negotiation, alignment and disalignment construed by the text and between the speaker and a writer, between the speaker and writer, and the text's putative addressee. Well, we have the notion of the subcategory of engagement disclaiming, which is usually when a voice rejects a position. There are some examples. Proclaiming, when the proposition is presented as reliable. Acknowledgement, when the proposition is presented as contingent among different positions, like the use of modality expressions and in a scale of probability. And then when we have external voices in the text attribute, and Michael Moore resorts to the use of the Holy Book, God, some quotations from the Bible, blessed are the poor, and so on. Irony, the second interpersonal strategy is irony. There are different views of irony presented in the paper, a more traditional approach following Gricean tradition, the flouting of the interrelationship between the cooperative principle and the flouting of maxims, the politeness principle presented by Leach, okay? And irony as a way of exploiting this politeness principle, right? That is one approach. The other approach, which the one that the paper most focuses on, is the notion of Sperber and Wilson, which we believe it's the one that is more foundational, in which irony is seen as an attitude of disapproval and a way of dissociating yourself, the speaker dissociating himself from the thought through ridicule, through scorn, through mockery. Sperber and Wilson, 1986. Then Crespo's Lajara view of irony as a defensive tool is also worth mentioning here. It's also mentioned in the paper as a way of attacking or criticizing somebody in political spheres. And Booth's view, which is sees irony as cover that is intended to be reconstructed from other meanings, different from the ones that are literal meanings. Booth, 1974. Well, there is irony and the different views of irony. The methods. Well, as I said before, the analytical tool is based on SFL, Halid in 1994, which focuses on appraisal theory, Martin and Rose 2003, and also Martin and White 2005. The data found will be turned into a qualitative study with charts to show whether capitalism is presented as positive or negative. In the movie, Moore interviews different people, bishops, priests, artists, different voices, different people that voice their opinions on capitalism, right? And he also introduces the voice of the mainstream media on the same topic. Here are the findings, some of the examples of irony found in the movie. The examples are numbered in the paper. Here you can see the numbers. In which Michael Moore and different speakers in the movie, or Michael Moore through different speakers in the movie, compares, for example, the system of capitalism or the US president with the Roman emperor, right? In terms of the violation, in terms of the violation of human rights. Then there are very humorous passages in the movie, in which, for example, another one is in number 10, in which Jesus Christ is compared with, or Jesus Christ speaks in the movie as if he were, or Michael Moore makes Jesus Christ speak as if he were a capitalist. But really humorous and hilarious passages in the movie. Then capitalism is also compared to vultures and and capitalism, a love story. After the title, Capitalism Love Story, through different images, Michael Moore resorts to the use of images to convey his message as well. And then Michael Moore shows a sign that says Capitalism a Love Story, and then he shows people robbing banks at gunpoint, and so on. Really hilarious. Well, here, out of the 40 descriptions of capitalism, 10 uses of capitalism were, there were 10 instances of irony, which amounts to 20% of these 40 descriptions of capitalism. Here we can see appraisal positive and appraisal negative. Lots of examples. Capitalism is contrary to all that is good, contrary to compassion. Right? Many speakers say that, which is negative appraisal. Capitalism is wrong. Right? It has to be eliminated. Examples of appreciation. And then also some positive, mainly the mainstream media, positive appraisal, in which capitalism is presented as morally right, the highest standard of living, the best system ever devised. Right? And we can see positive and negative appraisal findings. And well, there are more examples of appraisal. Here you can see the full examples. Capitalism is morally right. It is an evil. It is no longer defined by what one does, but by what one owns. The profit motive is the basis of capitalism. It has given us the highest standard of living, so on and so forth. And appraisal, well, you can see on the notion of capitalism, you can see the two ideological groups, Michael Moore and the mainstream. On the one hand, you've got the mainstream media as representatives of positive for capitalism. And then Michael Moore himself and his interviewees seeing capitalism as negative, viewing capitalism as something negative. Here you can see irony, and negative appraisal together, which amounts to 60% out of the 40 descriptions of capitalism. And then positive appraisal, the mainstream media, a little bit more than 30% of the uses. Here you can see the percentages, 62.5 of the descriptions of evaluations of the system of capitalism, the 25% of ironic evaluations plus 37.5 of praise and negative confirm some features of ideologies mentioned, like legitimating domination, articulating resistance, right? And then irony as a socio-cognitive representation of social groups. Here we can see the two clear social groups. Well, here the participants on the one hand and on the other. Here we can see the examples of engagement in which Michael Moore Michael Moore resorts to these uses of engagement to make his narrative a bit more inclusive and plural. Some external voices, right? Like God, the holy book, some examples of attribute, right? Well, these 13 phrases are not included in the 40 evaluations of capitalism in table 2, in the table 2 that we showed a minute ago. And here we can see some pedagogical implications. The study is intended to contribute to critical thinking and criticality, right? And this learning to read a text, according to Wallace 2003, must be encouraged. It is not part of a linguistic competence, so it has to be encouraged. And then some further research, some categories of appraisal have been left out, like graduation, affect, judgment, and the role of images in texts within a multimodal discourse analysis approach can be studied in future papers. Here we can see the 62.5% of negative evaluation that confirm the research question that our lexical choices disclose our ideologies. This has been shown through the director's intention, which is to show that capitalism is wrong and evil. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. See you later.